Hey everybody, Mike Guillaume, Sons of a Pitch Soccer Podcast, episode 162. We recap MLS Cup, the MLS Cup champions for 2020, Columbus Crew, as well as talk expansion draft. We're going to talk a little CCL later on. Nick, lots to talk about on this beautiful Monday night. How you doing, sir?
Feeling really good, Mike. All things considered for a work day Monday, I'm feeling pretty good, man. I am happy to be here talking soccer with you. Ready to jump into it, Mike. We got a little bit of housekeeping got to go over. Just want to remind all of our listeners and our viewers and our fans out there to make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Support us, support each other, spread the word. You know, we're trying to get to 1,000 YouTube subscribers. That is the goal. And Mike has put together a beautiful thing for you all here, a 1,000 subscriber challenge. When we reach 1,000 subscribers, one of our followers will be randomly selected to win a $250 Visa gift card. So make sure you click like and subscribe. Tell your friends like and subscribe. Tell your family to do it. Tell them it's $200 and then you pocket the 50 when it comes. Whatever you need to do, help us grow our channel, our brand, as well as the conversation of soccer here in America. Also, if you like what we're doing, if you want to support our show in additional ways, you can leave us a virtual tip on the Cash App. Use our referral code above here, FRQWGRS. And when you do that and you make your first donation, you can give us the $5 for the donation, and then you get $10 in a referral bonus. You make $5 free, people. Nothing you can't love about that. Additionally, if you want to continue to support us in other ways, we have a Patreon page up. If you want to get some swag, if you want to show off your Sons of a Pitch pride, if you like wearing double entendres on your clothing and supporting soccer and jokes, go to sonsofapitch.redbubble.com. You can slap our logo on anything from t-shirts to socks, from masks to shower curtains. And I know Mike doesn't go anywhere without his Sons of a Pitch sweatshirt and tumbler. Always full of something tasty. Absolutely. Additionally, one final note, if you're a business and you love what we're doing, or if you're an individual who just wants to continue to support soccer and the conversation of it, we do have sponsorships available on YouTube, on our social media, and on our podcast. So please email us, podcast@sonsofapitchsoccer.com. We can get that set up. And the last bit of social media here, Mike, the bracket challenge that you put together for the MLS Cup playoffs, we have a winner. We have a champion of our challenge. Let us know who it is.
So the winner is the bracket named Tigres for Life, Jorge. So how fitting is that a Liga MX named a bracket wins the MLS playoffs bracket challenge? But Jorge, you are the winner. You are the only person in our bracket challenge that picked the Columbus Crew to win MLS Cup. And T-Mac was so close with Seattle. If Seattle won, he was going to be the champion. But Columbus won, and that 100 points for the Columbus win puts Tigres for Life up by 205 to 200. So, Jorge, if you're watching, we'll be mentioning you. You are the champion. Let us know. Send us an email to podcast@sonsofapitchsoccer.com or shoot us a message on Twitter. Hell, even in the comments on YouTube. Won't be private that way. But let us know what your address is, what size T-shirt you like, and we will get that sent out to you ASAP.
Well, someone was really high on Lucas Zelarayan, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'll say.
Which, Mike, that's the perfect segue into our first topic here, recapping the MLS Cup, where the Columbus Crew defeat the reigning champion Seattle Sounders 3-0. I don't think I'm as surprised that the Crew won as that they did it 3-0, Mike. They blanked the Seattle Sounders attacking trio of Ladero, Morris, and Rui Diaz. Those guys don't not score goals. Mike, how did this happen? What were your takeaways from the game, and just how much did you enjoy it?
Man, it was a hell of a game, and thanks Ryan Anderson for jumping on as well. T-Mac joins us 5 points away from winning. He was so close, man. I feel for you. 76 NHL, smart man, Jorge, go Crew. You know what? As Ryan says, disaster class by all the Seattle players. They were horrible on the night. They were. 100%. That was not the Sounders who have won championships. It's not the Sounders who were playing even in the playoffs in the first round against LAFC. They did not show up. And I know we talked about it in our live stream reaction watch along. Once it was already, 2-0 at the half, we were like, man, it kind of seems, I think 100% the whole reason this happened is the fact that Seattle said, you know what, we've got this, especially once the announcing of Pedro Santos and Darlington Nagbe being out. They're like, oh, this is cake. We got this. And we just got to play our game. We'll be all right. And of course, confidence is key. You got to have the confidence. I mean, look at every cup winning team. They have the confidence. But I think that came back to bite them in the ass a little bit because they came out flat as hell. Maybe the quick turnaround from the Western Conference final, which was a craze of emotions. I mean, that was, right. You're down 2-1 in the 89th minute. You've clawed back from a 2-0 deficit to win 3-2, 2 goals in stoppage time. Basically, that kind of opens up the door for that letdown the next time out. And damn, Columbus there was no letdown there. They were like, hey, next man up. Etienne gets a goal. He played very well. Every Columbus Crew player played extremely well. And Lucas Zelarayan, I told you, man, I was totally wrong about this guy in the preseason. And I based that off of 2 games against TFC where he was invisible. But that guy is awesome. He is a hell of a player, right up there with one of the best DPs in the league, with Pozuelo, with Ladero. And Ladero didn't show up, and Zelarayan did. So, Columbus, good on them getting that victory there in the last game at Mapfre Stadium. They played a great game. Yeah, and Ryan says, Aiden Morris was amazing. He really did play well. Yeah. He held his own. A great game from the youngster there. So well done to the Crew. I enjoyed it, being that I picked Columbus, and I'm sure Jorge enjoyed it too with coming up there in the bracket challenge. But man, what a game! Overall, they just completely dominated Seattle off the pitch. And those are my thoughts on that. Nick, what'd you think, Mr. I picked the Sounders from day one?
Well, and I was 1 game off from finally picking the champion from the preseason, Mike. I haven't had a good record on that, but I stuck by it. Gosh darn it, I'm going to stick with it. I'm not going to cop out at the last minute. But you know what, Mike? I wrote a blog post about this over on our website, www.sonsofapitch.com or sonsofapitchsoccer.com. And there's 3 things that really stood out to me that the Columbus Crew did to win this game. The first off is the system that they use, that Caleb Porter has employed. He didn't change too many things up from Greg Berhalter, but his tweaks really showed up. And what I mean by the system is everyone on the field knows what everyone else on the field is doing and where they're supposed to be in any given situation. That really allowed Aiden Morris and Derek Etienne Jr. to step up with the confidence in their own ability and their teammates to have confidence in them to know what's happening with Nagbe and Santos being out. So yes, there was a drop-off in talent, but there wasn't a drop-off in the system play or the functioning of the team because of this particular system that's in place. Now, what do I mean by that, right? If the opposing team is really pressing Columbus, which Seattle did for a good chunk of this game, as soon as Columbus turned them over, they knew they could play a long ball over the top into either corner, into the channels, right? And you knew that one of the Columbus wingers would be there to pick it up. Or if you could play one over the top, over the center, you knew where Zardes was going to be. He was already making that run from the moment the ball's turned over. On the flip side, if Seattle were to hang back, keep a defensive shape, try to absorb pressure, allow Columbus to bring the ball up, well, at that point, the Crew knew who their outlet passes were on the wings. They knew how to switch the field, work the ball around, and then play the crosses in. Like their system is set for every kind of thing they're going to see on defense, right? I mean, it's like in the NFL when the quarterback calls 2 plays, gets to the line of scrimmage, and then sees what the defense is going to give you. It was, for all you 90s Bulls fans, it was the triangle offense, right? You ran with what was being given to you there. It's all those kind of comparisons, right? So the system really helped the Crew. The other thing, their pressure in the middle third of the field, man, was unbelievable. Such high energy. As soon as the Seattle player received the pass, there was at least 2 Crew players on them. They turned over Seattle so much, or forced Seattle to play back. Seattle had like 65% of the possession, Mike, but most of that was in their own half of the field. It was in non-threatening areas. It was great pressure by Columbus, and the Crew they had no way to break it. Their best way to break it was to lob a ball to Jordan Morris, and then he would just get shut down in the corners of the pitch and not be able to play it in.
Right.
My last little bit of thing here, you gotta give a little something to Map-Free Stadium. There was a little bit of Map-Free magic going on when the Sounders hit the post twice and then put like 3 or 4 shots like right outside the frame there. Like, how you've never seen Ladero, Morris, Rui Diaz, Roldan, all these guys. I think even Svensson had one that just missed. All those guys in the same game, missing the goal by this much. There's a little magic in Columbus that night, my friend. And it definitely favored the Crew. So with all of that being said, man, that's really why I think the Crew did it. Now the other thing on Seattle, Mike, and I want to get your take on Smetzer's coaching here. A lot of people were saying he needed to change his lineup. It worked well in their first round game. They ground out a win against Dallas. They had to come back and beat Minnesota in dramatic fashion, and he kept the same starting lineup throughout. People are going to ask now, should he have changed it? He lost, right? Those last 3 games were bad games for them in relatively speaking for Seattle. Obviously, knowing what we know now, we can say, yeah, it's easy to change your lineup. But what do you think he should have done? Should he be taking flack for this too?
No. No. The Schmetzer doesn't deserve any flack. I think if it was something clear, if it was something clear, like, he made a horrible substitution, maybe. But this is, you've got a group of guys, they're playing, they're familiar with that lineup over the past few games. You're going on the road for MLS Cup. Schmetzer is a hell of a coach. 2 MLS Cups to his name. No, it's not on him. The team did not play their game. Yeah, tactically you say, well, going up against Columbus and that system, maybe you switch things up a little bit. But I'm not for that. I think you play the game that you don't adopt your system based on the other team. You go out and get it the way that fits your team best. And that was the best 11 guys he had on the field for Seattle. There was no, Ladero wasn't on the bench. Morris wasn't on the bench. These were their big time players. And that's, to me, you don't change it. So I don't think he deserves any flack for that. And you know what? If you want to give him a hard time, he's on the end of his contract. Maybe he can go to Toronto.
I'm sure you'd welcome him with open arms, right? And I'm just like Jason Jardim says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This was a total win by the Crew, more so than I think the Sounders having a terrible game, right? They didn't play a good game, I'll give them that, but it was more on the Crew, I think, frustrating a lot of their efforts. So sticking with the Sounders here, though, there have been a couple questions that have to be addressed here now, Mike. The Sounders, right? 2 MLS Cups since joining the league in 2009. They've made the playoffs every year. 11-year playoff streak. I don't care what league you're in, what level you play at. That's amazing. 2 cups, 1 supporter shield, 4 U.S. Open Cups. They finished atop of the Western Conference in the playoffs 4 times. So that's 4 MLS Cup appearances. And then that year they won the supporter shield. Obviously, they won their conference regular season. So those are the big team accomplishments, not to mention all the individual awards those guys get. Is the Seattle Sounders team a dynasty? Can we say that? If not for the last decade plus, can we say it for the last 5 years at least, maybe?
Yes.
What do you think?
Yes, they're definitely dynasty talk. Look, these guys have been in 4 out of the past 5 MLS Cup finals. They have Open Cups. They have supporter shields. They have 2 MLS Cups. Yes, in a league that is, a league of parity, Of course. I mean, you're not talking MLB where there's no salary cap. This is a salary cap league. These guys have done what they've done over the past, 5 years. And then when we talk about the playoffs, the fact that they've never missed the playoffs, that's huge. That definitely comes into play here. And yes, it's dynasty. You look at Toronto FC, maybe the closest thing to that. They've got one cup, and they missed the playoffs in 2018. They've come the closest to CONCACAF. I mean, they're in the discussion maybe. I mean, clearly the best team ever in 2017. There's no question about that. 98 Galaxy, you can have this argument with me all day long. 2017.
You will in the offseason. We might revisit this topic.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But over the span of 5 to 10 years, Sounders, Destiny, yes, no doubt. Soccer 09, thanks for jumping on with us here. Sorry I wasn't in your other streams. No worries. Glad you're back. And brother BKL, yeah, I know Mike is really crazy, and I knew it. Crew is got to win that cup, and it's true, Nick. Seattle wins 3 times since the last time. So, yeah, you can call me crazy. I picked the Crew, and I won.
There you go, Mike. I got to go with Dynasty, too. I lean towards Dynasty, like at least in the last 5 years, right? And you said it. In a league where you're managing roster spots, international, domestic, DP, and now young DP, and all this other stuff, when you've got salary caps, when you've got new stadiums popping up, expansion, when you've got cross-country, when you got all these things to think about, not to mention CCL, MLS regular season, US Open Cup, exhibition matches with Liga MX. You've got all these players on Seattle who are appearing for their national teams. I would say this is absolutely a dynasty, even if you just go back to 5 years. I mean, you want to look at MLS dynasties, you look at the early days of the league, the first 5-10 years, Galaxy and DC, splitting all the trophies, right? And then in recent history, Toronto, Seattle are probably the two teams to talk about. I don't know of any other team who's really dominated, unless you want to throw like that San Jose Houston franchise when they were winning kind of their titles in the early 2000s. Maybe you throw them in the mix. I haven't done my homework enough on those, but I completely see Seattle as a dynasty, and that dynasty continues to grow unless you think their championship window is shut. And that's my next question for you, Mike. Is their championship window shut? Like, is this the end of it? If Smetzer moves on, maybe some of these other players take off or retire. They lose a couple guys maybe in the expansion draft. I think they're eligible for that one. Oh, nope, they are exempt from the expansion draft. So at least they're not going to lose guys that way. They haven't released any roster moves as of yet, but
right. The game was a couple nights ago, Nick.
Yeah, Columbus did. Jaco's not sleeping.
This one, not now. I mean, the window is not closed. May it get a little bit closer to closed? Maybe, but it's not closed. Smetzer has moved on. I doubt he's moving on. I mean, that guy, he's Seattle true, like just 100%, man. I mean, he played for him in the USL, NASL days. He coached him in the USL, NASL days. I don't think he's going anywhere. He's a Seattle guy. Now you look at the players, right? Ladero, he's talking about an extension right now. That came out, a little report about that he's going to get extended. Morris, I think his window's shut to go to Europe. He's too old for that now. He maybe makes a move to like a championship side, maybe if he just has this like pipe dream of playing in Europe one day. But with Christian Roldan, Alex Roldan, the young core that they have, and if they do lose some of those other depth pieces, they can easily fill that up with the salaries they're paying. So I think they're definitely still in that window. I don't know what Rui Diaz's contract situation is. They're still in the window for me. I don't take them lightly next year at all. This team has been around for a while. They make it to every damn MLS Cup except for one in 2018, since 2016. And the window's not shut. What do you think?
It remains to see what roster moves are made, right? If Smetzer's gone, if he's just like, okay, this is it, then I'm going to say that their window's shut, because it's his coaching philosophy and management style that has allowed him to get the best out of these players and has worked so well within this organization. So if he's gone, I say close the window. You make a couple moves, move a couple DPs, bring in some new guys. Their starting 11 is still as good as any starting 11 in the league, and you make a few moves, you get some depth, you avoid a CCL hangover that most other teams have had. See Kansas City, see LAFC, they're in it. They're in it next year. I also want to touch on the Crew and what they're building. Not a dynasty yet, but they definitely have some long, sustainable success going for them. First of all, Bezbachenko doing his thing. Like I saw a tweet from, I think it was Kristen Jack, a Canadian Toronto sports reporter, and she said, TFC misses the playoffs. Bezbachenko comes in, says, hey, this is what we need, signs Javinko, they win the cup 2 years later, right? Crew, he takes over as GM after they miss the playoffs. He goes, you know what we need? Lucas Zelarayan. They win the cup 2 years later. So Bezbachenko's doing his thing. So he's definitely going to be able to build sustainable success with Columbus. We saw Etienne and Aiden Harris, the youngest ever player to start in an MLS Cup and the youngest ever player to get an assist in an MLS Cup. So they've got some young talent they're developing there, especially with Sebastian Berhalter. Eloy Room has a new backup, Evan Bush, MLS veteran, just got signed by the Crew. So they're building their goalkeeper depth.
Yeah.
And if you look at the guys who they didn't pick up the contract option, it's just their depth pieces. Fatai Alashi, Emmanuel Boateng, Jordan Hamilton, Jonas Mokhtar, Christian Namath, and Andrew Tarbell. None of those guys had huge impacts on the season. They were depth pieces. Most of them were just picked up on 1 year, half-year deals anyway, just in case something happened to the starters. Like, they're ready to sustain success. They can sign a whole bunch of young players for the money they were paying to Alashi, Nemeth, Mokhtar. They've got sustained success in their future, Mike. So why don't you give me a quick thought on the Crew, and then we can move on to some of these season awards and recap that.
Yeah, they've got a good team. They'll be fine next year. They'll contend again for sure. How about J Hamilton there? 2 MLS Cup rings now, one with Columbus and one with Toronto. So not bad for that young man who barely seen the field for both teams. But anyways, Columbus, no, they're good to go. They've got a good, strong core there, and Bezbachenko leading the ship. They've got it. They'll be a contender again next year, and they'll go after it. Jay Jardim says, Bez will go after the CCL. Absolutely. Ryan says, can't wait to see TFC face the Crew in next year's CCL final. Hey, that'd be fun. Not counting on it, but that would be fun. Let's move on.
Great. Season awards here, Mike. We have finally the full list of everything from MLS, and also look back a little bit on our picks here. So how you want to do this? You want to break down each one and see how poorly we did in our preseason pick?
Let's move through quickly because I want to touch it. This is going to be a 30-minute episode. We still got to touch on expansion draft tomorrow.
Absolutely. So Golden Boot, Diego Rossi with 14 goals. And actually, it's funny, there were guys, Robert Barish from Chicago, I think tied for second. Like, how crazy is that to have someone from the Chicago Fire back in it? But my preseason pick was Carlos Vela to win the Golden Boot. He had 4 goals this year. And your preseason pick, even more silly, Josie Altidore, Golden Boot winner. He ended up with 2 goals this year. So we were a little off on that one, but I blame Coach.
Just a bit.
MVP picks, Alejandro Pozuelo of TFC. You know him well, Mike. He ended up winning the MVP this year, deservedly so. I'm not arguing that at all. Our preseason picks, I had Maxi Morales of New York City, and you had Pity Martinez of Atlanta, Mike, who didn't even finish the season with Atlanta.
Yeah, he's over in Saudi Arabia now.
So I can at least blame injury on my pick.
Yes, that's pretty rough.
Defender of the year went to Walker Zimmerman in Nashville. I mean, the guy scored goals as well as did all the defensive work, so it was no surprise to see him win it. You had picked Ramon Metenier, a finalist from last season from Minnesota. A solid pick. My pick was Anthony Robinson from Atlanta. Miles Robinson. Sorry, my old Everton USMNT brain here, Anthony Robinson. Miles Robinson from Atlanta was my pick. But I did say Zimmerman's my dark horse. If Nashville has a good season, he's going to win it. So I'll give myself half credit on that one, I think.
Whatever makes you sleep better at night, Nick. Zimmerman, deserving winner.
Absolutely. Alcohol makes me sleep better, and I'm empty tonight. So I'm going to use this pick. Goalkeeper of the year, Andre Blake with 8 shutouts. The only goalkeeper to have 9 shutouts, Willis of Nashville. I ended up picking Turner of New England. There you go, Mike. Here's your pick. Spot on. Andre Blake, goalkeeper of the year. Now, newcomer of the year. Who knew? right? Who knew that Zelarayan would win Newcomer of the Year, other than Jorge, who won our bracket challenge? I ended up picking Chicharito. I thought LA was going to have a rise this season. I thought he'd be a part of it. Plus, he's so hyped. Like, the media was going to pick him anyway. Nope, he fell on his face.
That might be as bad of a pick as Pity Martinez for MVP.
Might have been. You had picked Alan Pulido of Kansas City. Kansas City won the West.
Yeah, he started out hot.
Yeah, Kansas City didn't even have one player make the best 11 this year, despite winning the Western Conference.
Right,
Not one player made best 11. So there was that. Coach of the Year, I said Todd Ramos of Houston. You said Robin Frazier of Colorado. And the voters said Jim Curtin of the Philadelphia Union. So what do we know, huh?
Absolutely.
And just a few other awards, nothing that we picked, but that the league put out for all of your listening enjoyment. The Young Player of the Year, Diego Rossi. That's a new award. They just started that this year. Comeback Player of the Year, Bradley Wright Phillips. And Referee of the Year, Ismail Elfath. So you know what? For all the flack that he took, he was named Referee of the Year, as well as the Assistant Referee of the Year, Catherine. That's right, Catherine Nesbitt, the first female referee in an MLS Cup final. She was one of the ARs during that game. So those are all your awards for this season. Now, Mike, I'm going to flip it to you because you want to touch on something here as well. What do you want to talk about as we wrap up this show?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the best 11. I have no argument with the best 11. To me, that was spot on. The defenders, of course, only 3 with McKenzie, Mensah, Zimmerman. The midfield, Aronson is a young player. He did well-deserved. Diego Chara from Portland, Ladero, Pozuelo. Forwards, Jordan Morris, Rossi, and Rui Diaz. Couldn't have picked a better 11 myself at the end of the season. Now,
I think that's Chara's first best 11 selection in his career. I think it is.
Okay. Interesting.
I'll verify. You move on.
Yeah. Anyways, we got to talk a little bit about the expansion draft coming up tomorrow. So Austin FC, hence my green background here for Austin Verde or whatever they're saying there for obviously green in Spanish. They have their expansion draft tomorrow. So expansion draft, these things over the last few years, really just looking for guys to end up packaging and moving. In another trade, maybe pick up a veteran piece to have in the clubhouse, that type of thing. You're not going to find a DP through here. You're not going to, make or break your season through the expansion draft. A lot of interesting names that were left unprotected. Obviously, none of these guys, for the most part, most of them have had their options declined or they're out of contract or whatever the case may be. But a couple names that jump out on the list for me is number one would be from Miami, Federico Higuain. There's your veteran piece. Could we see that happen? Or, is that one where he wants to play with his brother and that's just all there is to it? But that would be somewhere where, you get more than just the player there. Obviously, he's not going to contribute much on the field anymore. He's past that, his days there. But that might be something for a leadership perspective from the clubhouse. As well from Miami, you've got Luis Robles, who went, I believe, I believe he got signed afterwards, might have been expansion draft to Miami, but he's still a good goalkeeper. So Miami with a couple pieces there. As well, you've got, Teshuak and Delhi has a lot, Dom Dwyer, a lot of MLS experience from Orlando out there. And for me, the only thing that I'm disappointed about with Toronto FC's list is that Josie Altidore is protected. I would have let him out there, man. Had to go for the U.S. star down to Austin, take him off the hands of TFC. But that's not going to happen. Ali Curtis has already come out and said, can't wait to have Josie back next year.
So they can sell him to Saudi Arabia for an overpriced money. I'm sure that's what it is.
There you go. But yeah, that's so that's kind of my thoughts from the expansion draft over the past few years. Really been moved on for like other pieces here and there through trades. A lot of the GMs are talking to each other. Hey, if you pick, Derek Cornelius from the Whitecaps, we'll trade you so and so for him. Right. And then they're like, oh, okay. So then they go pick Derek Cornelius, right? So a little bit interesting, too, is that it's only one team during the expansion draft. Over the past couple expansion drafts, I believe, there's been 2 teams. So it kind of switches back and forth. So there's a little bit of a, oh, boy, we got to get this guy off the board first. And, oh, we got to get that guy off the board, So it should be exciting to see who they decide to put in Verde. They just picked up Nick Lima in a trade. So a good pickup there. But, Nick, what are your thoughts on the expansion draft tomorrow night?
Yeah, so really quick, just so everyone kind of knows the background of the draft, there's only 5 rounds, so they get 5 eligible players, 1 player per club.
Right.
They get 3 minutes for each one. Obviously, that's not a huge deal if they're the only club picking. No trades during the draft, which is funny, Mike, since what you just said is the reality, but I guess technically no trades during the draft. And then for every club who has a player selected, they get $50,000 in GAM as compensation. So you're getting a little something for it. And then the Austin FC also gets a little bit of GAM as well from all the other teams that were protected in it. So maybe not from those teams, but because of those other teams that they didn't have the option to pull from, all the teams who had players selected last year, Austin is being compensated with GAM because they don't have as big of a player pool to select from. So that's a little bit. We love parity here in American sports. We love throwing money around. GAM doesn't mean a thing. What's the value here? Have some more GAM. Throw it all around. Whatever, right?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
So that's kind of the background of it. But what stood out to me, first of all, Chicago. We got to talk a little Fire here. We're from Chicago area. Like pretty much half the roster, to me, the Fire, like, yeah, whatever, take them. Don't even give us the GAM. Just take Sapong, take Sokolchik, take Kronholm and Kapelhoff. We don't need these guys. Just take them. So the Fire are moving on. They're rebuilding quickly. One thing that kind of stood out to me, the Houston Dynamo. I'll have to go back and review the roster to see exactly who is protected, but Maynor Figueroa, Mauro Manotas, those are Wilfred Zahibo. These are goal-scoring guys who are available. It would not surprise me if one of these Houston guys ends up playing just over, the other side of the state, or I don't know my Texas geography, the other part of the state, going from orange to green there. So that stood out. And you know what? If you're looking for a solid defender or a solid goalkeeper, go to LA. David Bingham is available. Not a starter on a championship team, that's for sure. But if you need a guy who's been around and who can give you some starts and at least keep your defense organized, go for David Bingham. And then Perry Kitchen, a very experienced defender, maybe not a lot of star power, but that's a guy that could make a difference for an expansion side like Austin. Coming from the Galaxy, understanding expectations in LA, in the league, and a guy who might be able to contribute right away.
Good call there.
Last thing too, Will Trapp. That dude knows how to play. Yeah. Obviously, he's not going to be a superstar, but the guy, depending on the system you want to run, Will Trapp could be a steal. Also, to get back to my point about Diego Chara, his first All-Star selection was last year, first and only, and this was his first and only ever best 11, despite his storied career with Portland.
Okay.
So that's my thoughts on Diego Chara, the best 11, and the expansion draft here, Mike.
All right, another one there. Team X says, although Joe Corona is also tempting on the Galaxy.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that would make a good decision there between Bingham and Joe Corona. All right, guys, we've reached our time on this one. We will be back in about 10 to 15 minutes with our Champions League preview and predictions for those games coming up on, what is it, Wednesday and Thursday? Or Tuesday and Wednesday, tomorrow and Wednesday.
Oh, hey.
So we'll be back with that in a few minutes, so hang tight. We'll see you guys in a few. Thanks for joining us.